So, hello everyone, good evening. I welcome you all to this strategy session on ethics. We keep on emphasizing how important ethics is when it comes to UPSC preparation and in deciding your final rank. So, today we have someone with us who has actually gotten a brilliant rank himself, rank 7. And to his score, the main score that he has gotten of 834, I believe, in that score, ethics had a very important role to play. He's gotten the highest score in ethics, 138 this year. And I want him to share his strategy with you. So I'd like to welcome him on the floor.
Hi, good evening.
So Raja, I think you can take up
Yes,
from
ma'am.
here and you can share whatever strategy you have.
First of all, I'll start with why your ethics is very important for you. Because to get a good rank, which will ultimately determine your service, everything, cadre, everything. For that, you need to be good at either your GS or optional. And in GS, it is very essential that you get a good mark in one of the GS papers. And one of those subjects. And one of those subjects, in my opinion, would be ethics. Because if you take ethics and focus on ethics particularly, you can get a good mark in that particular subject, and then that will ultimately help you to get a good rank. And that is what I personally did as well. So I have given a total of 3 attempts, but this was the only mains that I wrote. But even if this was the only mains that I wrote, I was able to get a very good score because I focused particularly on ethics throughout all my 3 attempts. One reason particularly is that it is a very interesting subject, and the second reason being that it is easier to understand. Like, even if you give an ethics question to a person who's not within UPSC prep, you give it to your friend who's not within UPSC prep, still they will also be able to give some inputs, because it is something which anyone can talk about, and it is very easier to understand and learn and very interesting. So that is why I focus a lot on it, and I love to write as well. So I focus a lot on this particular subject across my 3 attempts, and that is what helped me to get a very good score of 138. And like, you might be a beginner or someone who is giving this year's mains, ethics is something which you cannot ignore at all, because it is easier to score, and if you put in the right efforts, you can get the marks. So that is there. So that is why I focus particularly on it. So we'll go into the strategy now. Yeah.
So there are two things that we're going to be doing today. One is the strategy specifically for those appearing for mains 2026. So for them, a lot of questions, nuances are there in the paper, how to address the dimensions, how to address the demand of the question properly, what are the kind of examples that you should be writing, how to develop an edge from everybody else who is writing the paper simultaneously as you. So again, he'll be sharing the details into the strategy from note making to the larger focus would be on attempting the paper. The strategy on the day of the paper itself is what we'd be looking into.
Yes.
So I think we can start with your strategy first.
Yes, ma'am. So for someone who is giving this year's mains 2026, by now they would, or they should have completed one basic reading of any basic source, or they should have seen a class taken. So that is the basic thing that they would have done. But that alone, is it sufficient to write mains? No, that is no is the answer. So you have to do certain things to be mains ready particularly, and that also particularly should be done between the time period of pre and mains, right, in these 2 months. Let's say you have given this year's pre and you're not able to clear this year's pre as well, but still you should be focusing and thinking that you will be giving mains 2026. This is what I personally did as well. When I couldn't clear my pre 2023 and pre 2024, still I studied for mains of that year. I put in the efforts in those 2 months, because only if you put in those efforts in those 2 months and try to complete your syllabus before mains, that is when you will get that push and do it. So anyone who's like has given this year's pre, they should be doing the following things between now and the time of the result and the actual mains exam of 2026. So the first thing that you guys should be doing is your short note making, basically. So why should we be making short notes? Yeah, so basically, why should we be making short notes? So the first thing is revision. So as you can look at the GS paper timetable, how it is like that GS 1 and 2 is on one day, which is basically Saturday. And then on Sunday, you have your GS 3 and GS 4. So you have total of 4 GS papers in 2 days. So revision becomes very hectic. Trust me, it's very hectic process. I've been through it. And the GS4 paper, fortunately or unfortunately, is on the last day, on the last paper as well. So you would have crossed an essay paper, GS1, 2, 3. By then your mind will be, like fully done with, and your hands will be paining. So revising will be, very tough. You will all be thinking about the break that you'll be getting in the next 1 week. So how should I revise between GS3 and GS4? And that is what helped me also. Like I'll be saying it in the later course of the video. Like the revision part, the short note part is what helped me to revise effectively between that time period between GS3 and GS4, which is essentially 1.5 hours. So I have to revise entire of ethics in those 1.5 hours. Whatever I've learned in 1 year, I should be revising it. So for that reason, I need my short notes, right? So now coming to what type of short notes should I be making? So basically I formulated a 7-step strategy kind of a thing, which you guys can follow as well to make short notes in that manner, so that it becomes easy for you to revise it, right? So the first one, if you're a beginner to ethics, it might be a bit new for you, but still try to write it down, so that once you have done with all your basic stuff, you can start making the short notes. And obviously people who gave prelims this year should be making the short notes before mains. Yeah. So for the first one would be your ethical thinkers. So there is one part of the syllabus called as the philosophers of both Western as well as the Eastern, world. So in that, you should be having 2 short notes. The first one is particularly for the Western philosophers, and the second one is particularly for the Indian philosophers. So first, coming to Western philosophers, who all do we have? Sorry. We have Socrates, Plato, then Aristotle then we have your utilitarian ethics, Kantian ethics, Bentham is there, Mill is there. So all these people will write down the names of them, and below them 5 to 6 pointers, just the pointers. Now for example, for Aristotle, under him we'll just be writing golden mean, and then we'll be talking about virtue ethics. We won't be writing it in detail, because you would have studied it all in the theory part already. So you know what golden mean is. Golden mean is nothing but taking the middle path, basically, right? So you will write Aristotle, then write 1 point below it saying golden mean. Then the second one would be your virtue ethics. Like that, you will list out 5 to 6 things over there. So for this, the sources are your basic sources, then your class notes that you take here in Vajiram. Apart from that, you can also use your AI tools for this. You can use any AI tool for this. Just put in the thinker's name, ask him to give you certain pointers that I can use in the exam. You can play around with the prompts. You can ask, like, I need to get 130 plus marks in GS4, or I need to write a very good ethical answer, so give me good points said by him. So you can play around with the prompts and get quite a few number of keywords said by that particular thinker. So write it down below Aristotle, then Socrates, then Plato. So do this. So this is for your Western thinkers. Similarly, for the Indian thinkers, so you have Gandhiji. Gandhiji is someone that you can use across all the GS4, across all the 4 GS papers, and particularly in GS4. So you have the 7 sins of Gandhiji. Then you have him talking about Sarvodaya, Antyodaya, all these things. So you would have read all the theory parts before. Now just have the pointers ready for you guys to revise, because you can use them in across various different answers. Let's say one question is talking about commerce. So there you can, basically, commercial companies exploiting people or something like that they're talking about, or about corporate social responsibility. In all those questions, you can have a common conclusion talking about commerce without morality, which is basically a sin, one of the 7 sins told by Gandhiji. So this is something of a common conclusion that you can use across, the 7 sins is something of a conclusion that you can use across the paper. So have these short pointers ready. So you have done Gandhiji, then Buddhism, Jainism. So like this, have a set of Indian philosophers as well. Tagore, you can have Vivekananda, you can have. So have them listed out. Thiruvalluvar, because he's a Sangam age poet. And then there was a quote from Thiruvalluvar as well. So you can have him also as listed. So this is the Indian thinkers. So we have done 2 short notes, the Western and the Indian thinkers. Then coming to the third one is the most important part of what makes your answer look more ethical. Now, it is very easy to make a GS based answer in ethics. If you look at GS2, you have a part called governance. which is extremely overlapping with the GS2 governance part. So how should I, GS4 governance part. So how should I differentiate the ethics governance from the GS2 question? So the questions will be the same, but the way that we write the answer should be different between an ethics. We should differentiate it between a GS4 answer and GS2. So for that, the basic thing is ethical keywords. So we'll be using ethical keywords. So the third short note is to just have a set of ethical keywords. This is to improve your vocabulary. So you should have a good ethical vocabulary to write it. So this will be your third short note. So in this particular, the first major thing is obviously your syllabus. Your syllabus itself has a lot of good ethical keywords and values. So write them down. Then again, you go to your material, your class notes, see what keywords they have given in class. Take them, they would have been scattered across your notes. Take them all, collect them all, and then put it in that particular note. Then obviously you'll be looking at toppers copies. You might look at my copy or someone who has written before. In those, they would have used certain good ethical keywords. So take them down and then write it down. For example, there is this thing called red tapeism. Everyone knows it. So from red tapeism, we have to go towards, a red carpetism, which is basically put a red carpet for them. Red carpet is given to who? It is given to very important people, right? So from red tapeism, we are considering the citizens as much more important people. So this is a good governance based keyword. So this you can write. Then there is this keyword called ivory tower mindset, which is basically what civil servants think of themselves. This is again a keyword, but in a negative sense. But these are all good keywords to use in the exam. So have a collection of them is what I will say. So this is the third thing. Then the fourth thing, yeah. It is the Indian philosophers part. Yeah. So the Western philosophers, Indian philosophers, then will be your ethical keywords. Then the fourth part is something that you would have all done if you have read once ethics, which is basically the definitions of everything that is there, right? And a quote related to that keyword. So have them ready. For example, let's say emotional intelligence. Whose definition will you guys be using? Goldman's definition you'll be using. So have that written, right? Then a quote related to emotional intelligence. So this will be your fourth key, notes, which is basically just the definitions and the quotes, right? Then coming to the fifth and sixth, these are full of examples now. Now comes the interesting part, thinking of examples. So when everyone looks at the syllabus of ethics, what we start with the first ethics interface, that part. But UPSC has given a certain instructions before the starting of that syllabus that many people forget to read it. Even I didn't read it when I was preparing. I read it now once post selection. There they have given that ethics paper tests the candidate's personal opinion and views. So the answers that you write should be very personal. It should not be you should not be writing a question answer that is given in an institute or something. It should be something which is very personal. So they will be able to find out if someone is taken material out of a note and then he is writing it, a common note. So you should be making the answer more personal. How will we be making answers more personal? Via the examples that we use, right? So when people use civil servants examples, they generally use the well-used examples. Like I totally understand that they've also done a very good job, but people generally use them commonly. Like for example, T.N. Session sir or Armstrong Palme sir. So these examples are very well used and they keep on repeating across papers. So that should not be done. You should be going for certain unique examples, right? So now how should I go for unique examples? Try to think of certain sectors that are there. For example, sports. Generally, people don't write sports-based examples. So sports can be a sector. Then another part can be your own personal life. So let's say you have to write an example for honesty. You can talk about something that happened in your own life there. So that can be an example. Then think of AI, social media. Then go for your PESTEL approach, political, economical, social, technological, like this. So have a set of 10 or 11 sectors ready, and then add the keyword. So now for honesty, I have to look for 10 examples across the sectors. Then for integrity, I have to look for examples across the sectors. Then for objectivity, across transparency, across the sectors. So like this, try to have a set of 40 to 50 examples. We cannot go more than 50. 50 will be fine. And then you can obviously have common examples. Like one example can be for both honesty as well as integrity together. So that can be done so that you have a reduced number of examples, but still effective enough. So this will be your fifth component, which is basically your examples. So then comes the sixth component, which is civil servants examples particularly. So this I would put it as a separate note itself, because of the nature of questions that are being asked. We'll be looking at them as well. So in those questions, you will see that they're particularly focusing on the governance part of the ethics, which is the last two syllabus points. So in that, it is very essential that you write new examples of civil servants, right? So in that, that is what I was talking about, the old used examples that people are using. Don't use them. Instead, you go and search of new case studies that are happening. Each one of you guys must be from each separate district and from a separate city. So in that, there will be a civil servant who's doing a very good job. So that example will be personal to just you, right? So you can use those examples. That will show that you're writing a personal answer rather than a answer that you have read from somewhere and writing. So try to have a set of 30 examples. So there are a lot of websites where they talk about the good things that are done by civil servants. You can look at it. Even I had a set of examples. So have a set. I had around 20 to 25. You can aim for 30. Have them ready, right? So this will be your sixth. Then the seventh part will be your mythology, using mythological stories in your answers. So there, I particularly did not have a note for it because I had it in my mind. But what you can do is you can write down the stories that are there in Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Greek mythology, and then try to actively connect them to the keywords. So for honesty, maybe, so you can have a story ready-made in the mythology, which you can use as an example if they ask. So what does this do? This again differentiates your answer from another person's answer who is just generally writing stuff. So have these also ready. So this is the seventh. So apart from this, while we are looking at the governance portion of ethics, again in the 2025 paper, as we'll be looking at it, there was something called measures that you will take, specific measures that you will be taking as a civil servant over there. So for this, again, there are the last two parts of the syllabus. So one is the public and civil service values, and I think the last one is about probity in governance. So a lot of keywords will be given in that two syllabus points. Like for example, one is that I can think of now is the misutilization of funds. So for that, how should I counter it? You need to have a set of measures ready. So have a set of 5 to 6 measures ready for all the keywords that are given in the syllabus. That too, particularly the last 2 points, which are the governance based syllabus points. So have a set of measures ready for all of them, because you will be looking at the 25 paper. You will see that they've continuously asking you about the measures that you will be taking, the measures that you will be taking to implement code of ethics, the measures that you will be taking to better utilize funds. So if you have them ready made, it becomes easy for you to write, right? So that is the thing. And again, in the measures that you'll be taking, you can again quote a world, a best practice taken across the world. From in Singapore they're doing this or something like that. Then a national level best example, best case study, then a state level one. So like this, you can have good governance case studies, which will also help you in GS2 as well. So these are the 7 to 8 short notes that you should be having. This should be done once all your basic syllabus is done. Once you have read everything, read a material or watched a class. Once this is done, this is the arsenal that you will be taking for you for the the actual exam in the next 2 months. So this is the short notes that I was talking about, right? So then
I'd just like to add one thing to this. What Raja said, he's very beautifully summed up what is to be done with respect to notes. Just that when you're preparing, like he said, on the lines, pick up any value. Let us say integrity is one value. Right now, when you're preparing examples, like he said, pestle में break down करना है उसको into political examples, let us say social examples, technology related examples if you have. Then he said personal examples of the same. For example, an instance where you displayed integrity in your personal life when it came to, say, cheating in an examination. You could have easily done it, but you did not. That shows, like he said, the directive that UPSC has asked, that you have to showcase your personality to the examiner via this paper, which is very important. Then one more thing is that you should add negative examples to each of these values. Because a lot of times they ask you like lack of integrity related examples. So you can pick up civil servant examples that had shown lack of integrity, good positive examples of integrity. Of course, you're adding various dimensions to it. So that is something that you can do. Then another thing that he said was very important. When you're talking of contemporary thinkers or other thinkers, you should always try to give contemporary relevance. For example, if you're preparing Gandhi and Seven Sins, with every seven sins, you should have where will you apply these in the current context. Let us say wealth without work. It can be used in a context of say corruption, for example. So when you do this, आपको brainstorming वाला part पहले से करके जाना है. अगर आप वो एग्जाम में करके you're thinking that okay I know the theories separately and I'll be able to apply it, that does not happen. So what you can do is mention all the theories, thinkers. Just for example, Swami Vivekananda has given the concept of Daridra Narayan. Where will you want to apply this concept of wanting to see God in the poor instead of doing charity to the temples, etc.? Think of every poor as God themselves. So you can link it with say climate refugees, you can link it in the some of the current context,
Refugees.
etc., and that would give a beautiful meaning to it. So think of कि अभी के context में मैं ये सारे thinkers ideologies को कैसे reimagine कर सकती हूँ, right? That would make a lot of sense. Let's go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So what's yeah. So now we will come to for every what I say is for every part of this exam, take it prelims, mains, or anything. So now in this case it is ethics, right? So there are two things. One is the knowledge part, right? Another one is the execution of it. So this is true for every, this you can divide it for almost each part of this exam. Even the personality stage, one will be the knowledge gaining part where you gain knowledge, and the execution part where you speak it out. So now you're in ethics, what is the execution part? It is to write the answers, right? So there, while coming to answer writing, again, the major thing that is important for the knowledge part we completed already. You have done the classes, you have your short notes ready. Now you are going to start writing the answer. So while writing the answer, the main thing that should that differentiates you from another person, person not getting marks, is understanding the demand and addressing the demand, right? So what happens generally is, first, understanding the demand itself becomes a bit difficult for people. Many people don't understand what is the actual demand of the question. Demand means what the examiner is expecting out of you, what you should be writing on the paper. So that is the demand. So many don't understand what the demand is, and even if they understand, they don't address the demand properly. So that is the major thing. So we'll be talking about that as well. So there are two things, basically, your implicit demand and your explicit demand. So we'll look at it with a question.
So it's a 25 paper.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at the 2025 paper where you guys, we can also brainstorm on what the demand of the question is, right?
Backstage है.
Fine. So here you can see two demands. One is the implicit one and the other is the explicit demand. So now look at this. In the present digital age, social media has revolutionized our way of communication and interaction. However, it has raised several ethical issues and challenges. Describe the key ethical dilemmas in this regard. So now here, what are they asking you to explicitly do here? Sorry? Exactly. So they're asking you to describe the ethical dilemmas. So say it completely. So they're asking you to describe the key ethical dilemmas. So this will be your what? Explicit demand of the question, right? And this is what is going to fetch you your maximum marks out of 10. But there is another implicit demand here, which is what? No, that is not just the implicit demand. What is the full implicit demand?
How social media is revolutionary communication.
Connect them both and say. So it is basically how it has revolutionized our way of communication, but at the same time has raised several ethical issues and challenges, right? So this basically is what? Your implicit demand. So now what generally happens is people talk a lot about the implicit demand. So how many pages do we get for this answer? 2 pages. So people, what they do in the first page fully, they write about this part, the implicit demand part, which is basically talking about how it has revolutionized a way of communication, and also talking about the various challenges and ethical issues. But that is not what they're asking. The explicit demand is to address the ethical dilemmas that are there. So okay, basic thing, what is the difference between issues and dilemmas? Like issues are basically just the problems that are there, but dilemmas means this versus this. So social media is helping me to communicate faster, versus social media is also spreading fake news or false news. So that is an ethical dilemma. So this versus this, so that is what is an ethical dilemma. So that is the explicit demand. So you should be talking more on the ethical dilemmas. So what, in what space should we be writing the implicit demand in? Can we just take the blank space? Huh. So, or wait 1 second. There is blank. Huh. So here, so this, I'll just draw the page for you guys. So this is your first page, and this is the second page, right? So here is what is this? This is the question. So what will be the basic structuring? Now that we have saw what the demand is, we'll see how to structure the question as well, right? So what will be the basic structure of any answer that everyone uses? IBC structure, which is basically intro, body, and conclusion. And I also used it. I did not experiment in this. So this was the thing that I used. So first will be your what? Intro, right? So let me divide the page also into half, right? So in the, what is this? This is the first half of the first page. So here you will be having your what? Introduction here. So you will be writing 2 or 3 lines here. So from the second half of the first page, you should be starting your explicit demand, right? Which in this case was what? Ethical dilemmas, right? So we'll be starting it from here. Maybe we'll be completing 1 ethical dilemma here, or maybe 2 if space permits. So now this space that is there, this is for you to play around with, you to do value additions in, you to do, you to draw diagrams, draw flow charts, anything. But this space is, in my opinion, was to address the implicit demand. This space that I've shaded here, this one, this was to address the implicit demand. So that why should we address the implicit demand? It gives a context to the examiner so that we can go on to the main part of it, which is the ethical dilemmas part in that question, right? So here, how ideally would I, for that question, how can we fill this space for implicit demand? Any ideas for how to fill this space? Because, okay, tell me what all we should be addressing in this particular question for the implicit demand. There are 2 things. Revolutionizing the communication as well as the ethical issues and challenges. But minded, we just have this much space, right? I hope you can imagine it on a paper, like an intro, then the body is starting here, but then just this. So we have to draw a schematic here. So what kind of a schematic can be drawn? Any idea of like, yeah.
It can be described as a double-edged sword.
Yeah. It can. Okay, so you're no, but we should be drawing it and then showing. So how can we draw it and show?
Visual
or like
representation.
Visual representation of it. Just think about it. What can be done, because it has 2 sides, right? So what can be drawn here? Anything that comes to your mind? Or okay, fine. I'll tell you now. So we'll discuss in other questions. So what we can do is we can maybe draw a circle like this, and then on this side you can write 3 points for what? 3 points for what? For revolutionizing the communication. And in this side you can write 3 points for what? For the ethical issues and challenges, and not huge points. For revolutionizing communication, you should just be writing small pointers, very, very small pointers. So what can be written here for revolutionizing communication? Yeah, that okay, right. So basically it has increased the right to expression, that one. So RT increase, but tell me which is something related to proper communication. Accessibility. You can do cross country communication as well, so even remote areas can be accessed. So I'll be writing that. So cross boundary communication has become easier. So cross boundary communication made easy, that is all it should be written there. So another thing in answer writing is also a thing called verbosity, which you should be reducing a lot. So you will be getting to know it as you start writing answers. Verbosity should be decreased a lot so that you take out all the extra stuff and just have words that are necessary. So that is one point. Then third one can be access to remote areas, right? So in 3 points, I've just shown how it has revolutionized communication. Access to remote areas, increasing your right to expression or something like that. And this one, border country, we can talk like that. We will be writing here. And then challenges, what all we can write. We can write stuff like, trolls are increasing, right? Then fake news. Just write the word fake news. That would be enough. Then spamming unwantedly. So all this can be written here. So this just shows that you have understood the implicit demand and you just use this space. So you'll be drawing okay then fully okay. So here, so this was a page, right? So here you'll be just drawing it here, and then here you make small arrows, and then you can write 1, 2, 3 here, then 1, 2, 3 here, right? So this can be done. So this is a schematic that you can draw where you show the implicit demand. So that is how you address the implicit demand. Don't let the implicit demand go beyond, say this part. Maximum it should be here. Even this I won't, agree, because it's too much of importance given to this. Then as soon as you can, you should be starting with your proper explicit demand here. So what is the explicit demand here is to talk about ethical dilemmas, right? So that you will be talking here. Ethical dilemmas is something which is this versus this. So that should be written. Now here, depending on the space, 5 or 6 ethical dilemmas should be written, and then you will be concluding it. So this is how you address the demand, understand the demand first of all, address the demand, and then structure the answer based on what the demand is. And how will we be structuring it? Less space to the implicit demand, but we still address the implicit demand, and more space, or the actual answer should be the explicit demand alone. Describe, discuss, critically analyze, all these are the explicit demands of the question, but there will be a pretext to that part which is given upper. So that is the implicit demand. So that you will just address here in this part. That's all. Fine. So this is about this. Now come to the actual points that you'll be writing. Now we talked about the the ethical dilemmas. That's the same question we'll take. So how should I brainstorm, or think about ethical dilemmas, or how will I be writing it? So here again, what I'll be doing is the short notes that we made. So that should be the focal point of your brainstorming. So now think of any thinker, either Western or Indian, because that was the first part of our short notes. So how will we put them in? We'll take another question. One second. There was. So take this question. So here, first tell me, like, what is the explicit demand of it? What is the explicit demand of this? This again is a 2025 question. What is the explicit and the implicit demand of it?
Contemporary geopolitical.
What is the explicit demand? Just tell me that. Which one?
Contemporary geopolitical.
Tell it fully. We have to, we have to.
Sir, the question is asking to relate the contemporary geopolitical conflict with that statement.
Okay. No, that is not the, see, that is what I'm saying. Understanding the demand. Understanding the demand. This also needs a lot of work. So someone tell me what is the proper explicit demand of it?
Using the other means other than diplomacy like
Okay.
Just read
What?
from the question what is explicitly being asked. Like क्या part आपको सिर्फ context के लिए दिया है और क्या part they are asking you to address as it is. Something that has a question attached to it.
You just tell me the.
कोड को critically analyze करना है
Okay.
contemporary context में.
In what? How should we critically analyze it?
Both in how board is diplomacy by other means and how it is not
Using what?
using contemporary example.
Exactly. So that is the actual demand of the question. So the proper explicit demand of the question is to critically analyze the statement, which is basically what? Write both the parts, which is basically talk against it plus talk for it. Both the things we should be showing, but in with using what? Using the present context of contemporary geopolitical conflict, which is basically what? Examples. So using current examples, we should critically analyze the statement, which is basically talk points in support of the statement plus talk points against it, right? Now it is, in my opinion, because it is critically analyzed, so which point should be more? Negative. So this, I'll talk against the statement more than the support, than this part. I'll be talking more on this part. So most of my page will be filled with against this than this, right? And but this will also be written at the end, supporting this statement in the, again, with examples of the present context, right? Now, what is the implicit demand here? They have not asked an implicit demand, but still there is one, which is basically what? Writing the meaning of this quote. What you actually mean by war is a diplomacy by other means. They have not asked it here, right? They have not asked here, what does this quote mean to you, right? But they have not asked it. But still, in that space that you had, right? So you write an intro here. In this space, you can maybe briefly explain off on why, what this quote means. So basically, what does this person say? He says that it is, war generally is looked at as a violent thing, but actually he says that it is not a violence, it is just a form of communication or diplomacy between two countries. So just write that here, meaning of the quote. Many people, what they did, they explained this entire meaning for one page, which is not at all the demand of the question. So just keep it a bit brief and then go into the actual demand. Now we'll come to the actual thing, brainstorming of points. Now here, let's say against, right? So now we have to talk against this statement, which is basically what? War is not a diplomacy. It is something which is about violence and all those things. So now think of ethical thinkers that you'll use here against this statement. Gandhi. Western thinkers first, because that came first, then the Indian thinkers. How will you use Kant?
It's a violation of deontology.
Deontology. But at the same time, we can also use Kant, Kant's duty principle. What is the duty of every country? It is to protect its sovereignty, right? So that, according to that, war can be justified. If your sovereignty is threatened, it can be justified. But that is also a way to look at it. So you can use Kant in that way as well, this way as well. I'm just giving you a point. A better thing against it will be utilitarianism, which says greater good for greater people, but it goes against it because some or the other damage is being done, right? So if you look at it from a world perspective, it is not for the greater good of people. Yeah.
So we can add just what theory.
Just what theory also we can use for this one. I was asking for the against, but for support you can use the just what theory or the duty principle of Kant. That also you can use. So this is the first part of our brainstorming, which is the Western thinkers. Then Indian thinkers, he talked about Gandhi, right? So Gandhi talks about an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. So that you can be writing it against, right? Apart from that, which philosophies are there? Indian philosophies. He also talks about how everyone is we are all in the same world. He talks about international citizens and all those things. So, and our other basic philosophies will be Buddhism, Jainism, where you talk about ahimsa. So my point is, many people here will not be even writing any thinkers, right? And instead they'll be going for an IR based answer, which again makes it a what question? A GS2 question. So we are now making it ethical by brainstorming arguments in the flow of our short notes that we have had. So then ethical keywords, what values can be used against, what values are lost because of war. So there we can use some keywords, like it goes against the values of compassion, humanitarianism, empathy, and all those things, right? Then obviously in the examples you will have some IR based examples, which is the fourth and fifth, I mean the fifth part, sixth part. So you'll be having some examples ready made, so those you can be using here, right? Then mythology, what can be used here in war relating to mythology? Bhagavad Gita. You were saying about Ashoka is a good mythology. It's not mythology but a history example, but still can be used. Mythology mein Bhagavad Gita or Kurukshetra war can be used, where we talk about that war was justified because it was for dharma or something, so that you can be using to support this, so you can use it. So many, like all of us know about Mahabharata, and we will be associating it with this just because you thought of what, the mythological perspective. Now if you have not thought of that in the exam hall, in the pressure of how many minutes to write a 10 marker, it's just 7 minutes, and then let's say 30 seconds for understanding the demand and all, so it's just 6.5 minutes. In 6.5 minutes, if you're not thinking of the the mythological angle, you won't be able to figure out that Kurukshetra point or the Bhagavad Gita point. But if you have this template in your mind, you will be able to brainstorm it. So that is the ultimate aim of brainstorming. So while brainstorming, have a fixed template with you, and that template can be the short notes template that we used, thinkers, keywords, examples, and all those things. Now come to the ethical dilemma question. So in the ethical dilemma of social media, so how can you link civil servants to that question? Ethical dilemma of social media, how can you link civil servants to it? What ethical dilemma do civil servants face while sorry, anonymity versus fame? Okay, but okay, yeah, fine. Another one?
The restriction on freedom of expression.
Yeah, versus
Service rules.
versus, because it's a ethical dilemma, right? He told this versus that. Similarly, it versus what? Yeah, that can also be seen. But what you said first will be the major thing that everyone will be writing, which is basically what? Anonymity or maintaining secrecy versus putting out something that is there so that it is a good case study, so that other people can also be taking inspiration from it and all those things. So they can either use it in the correct way, but versus all these reels that are going just for the fame, they are doing it. So that is an ethical dilemma of a civil servant using social media. So generally this point many would have not written in that question, but I wrote it. Why? Because it was part of the brainstorming process, right? So the sixth part is what? Civil servants example. So I will be looking at a civil servants angle in each and every question. Now for this question, obviously we cannot write a civil servants angle because this is an IR question. But for that question, the social media question, many people would not have thought of a civil servants angle. But why is it important to think of a civil servant angle in general for any of the question, ethics question? Why is it important? Basic only. It is because we are writing the CSE exam, right? So it is ethics for civil services. So it is obviously there are certain governance questions where they directly ask you, where they directly ask about civil servants. But if you bring in a civil servants angle, even if they have not asked about it directly, it will be even more appreciable. So that will be part of my template as well, to think of a civil servant angle to a question, right? So for this, obviously you cannot think. So that is the thing. Yeah.
Russian general who stopped the spread of nuclear war. We can use it.
We can use, but then how is it relevant to the question? So while brainstorming, another thing that was the previous slide. That is what this part becomes. Basically, sorry. So basically molding content as per the demand of the question. So now that I've asked you to brainstorm from your notes, what generally people do is they just put out whatever there is in their notes over there and then come. But what you have to do is you have to mold it as per the demand of it. So here what he said was a civil servant, preventing war from happening. But how is that? How will you mold it according to the demand of the question? That matters.
कि रशियन जनरल ने ये सोचा कि नहीं वॉर एक डिप्लोमेसी नहीं है,
हाँ.
इसके अलावा भी बातें हो सकती है, तो उसने वो न्यूक्लियर बटन नहीं दबाया.
Okay, so he's saying war is not a diplomacy. So you can use that as an example for against it, right? Yeah, that works. So you're thinking of a civil servant example to use there. So that is fine. But my entire aim of saying this is that you will have certain notes, right? You will have a set of 30 to 40 examples, civil servants. So in that, if you have an example like this, which is very unique, then you can write it over there. But the thing is, we won't have unique examples for that question, because we never thought. Now we know that they've asked that question and we can think of an example for that question now. But in the exam hall, that question was a new question to everyone, right? So they have to think on the spot and then write. So rather than that, what I would say is, so think of the short notes that you have, see if you can somehow mold anything and then write. If possible, then write it, or then move on to the next one. So that is what we should be doing for brainstorming. So this is about brainstorming and also molding the content as per the demand of the question. Use these templates, basically the templates of the short notes only, use them. Apart from that, the thing that I told, try to bring in a civil servant's angle to each question. Try to bring in a mythological angle to each question. So that is about brainstorming the arguments. So then comes this code-based questions. What is the demand of a code-based question? How many code-based questions are asked? 3 code-based questions are asked. What are the demand of these 3 questions? What is the demand of all these 3 questions? No, that's not the demand. What is the actual demand? Exactly. So many people do not read the question at all. That is given on top of the quote. So they give a question here. It is mostly which question number?
3 ABC.
It's 3, is 7, no? Or 3? 3. Okay. So it is 3 ABC, right? So, I think it's the 7th question, I think. I'm not sure. Okay, so it's 3 ABC. So there you have to see before 3 ABC is starting, what is the actual question that they're asking. So the question is, what does this quote mean to you in the present context? So like that, right? So you have to show the relevance of this quote in the present context. So many people, what they do, they focus a lot on the meaning of the quote, what this quote means to them, and they write 1.5 pages on it. So this means that we have to stay untroubled, we have to not be perturbed by trouble, we have to stay calm, we have to be emotionally intelligent, we should not be getting irritated by trouble. If that happens, then I can have the strength to trouble the trouble itself. So they will be talking in detail about the meaning itself, which will take for 1 page. That is not the aim. The aim or the explicit demand is basically what? Meaning of the quote in the present context. The implicit demand is obviously the meaning, just the meaning of it, right? So I followed because there is a lot of confusion on what the structure of how a code-based question answer should be. So I followed this structure. So you have, again, drawing the 2 pages. So again, the same structure, which is basically you have an intro, and I had this thing where in the introduction, I will talk about the person who told the quote. So here it is who? Thiruvalluvar. Who's Thiruvalluvar? He's a Sangam age poet, and he has written a work called Tirukural, which has couplets. It will have just 2 lines, okay? And I personally know that it is 1330 couplets are there. So I wrote this. 1330 couplets are there, and he has written in in Tamil Sangam age Tirukural. So I wrote this in the intro. There are quotes of Kalamji as well, Vivekananda ji as well. For Kalamji, you can write that he was the missile man. So all these things, give a brief about the person who has given the quote. If it is an unknown person, then fine, you can leave it. But if it is a known person, write the relevance, write who he is, a bit context to what he is, who he is, right? So that can be given in the intro. So I used to do that. Then this part is for what? The implicit demand. The implicit demand here is what? The meaning of the quote. So I wrote here meaning of the quote, right? So I wrote meaning of the quote like this. Then here, if it is a huge quote, I broke it into 2 parts. So this is a big quote. So I broke it into 2 parts. First part. So meaning of the quote, first part I will write and then say what the meaning of this is. Then this is your second part. So I will write it here. First part ka meaning, second part ka meaning. Right. So what is the meaning of the first part? Those who in trouble, untroubled are. So basically, while something is troubling you or someone is disturbing you, you have to stay you should not get perturbed by it. You should not get irritated by it. So that is the meaning of the first part. Second part is will trouble itself, which means what? They will gain the mental courage, they will gain the physical courage, mental strength to counter the thing or the distraction that is distracting them. So that can be written here. So that is your understanding of the quote. So you show it here, meaning of the quote, or you can also write my understanding. No, don't use my, write understanding of quote. And then if it is a huge quote, break it into two parts, first and second. So you're done with the implicit demand. So now what is the explicit demand here? We just talked about it in the present context. So now how is this entire quote, how you have to be untroubled during trouble, how is it relevant in the current context? So here try to have a certain sectors of current relevance, like sorry. So you can have health, any economic crisis here, any international, disturbances, right? Personal example you can give here, because present context may even you also come, right? So you can write a personal life may how we should say untroubled, so that we can trouble itself, right? And then international affairs may I remember writing about Op Sindoor here, where even if the other country was troubling us, we stayed untroubled, right? And then we were able to trouble itself. So it becomes very easy. You just take the context of the quote, put it in different sectors, and then you will get the answer. So for this, what you can really add, what you can do ready-made stuff, you can add it as a part, as a sub-part of that examples short note, the fifth one that I told, is to have certain current context examples, particularly for the code-based questions. So this can be a sub-part of your that fifth part that I told, the short notes part, right? So in that examples part, you can have this as a sub-part, the current context examples. So here, generally the quotes that they ask have just one majorly it is about getting up after failure, trying to be resilient even in moments of failure. These are the general the meaning of the quotes that they're giving. The quotes can change, but the meaning is mostly this: how we have to keep on working hard and all those things, right? So you can have a set of common current context examples like Op Sindoor, then COVID example, then any economic crisis that is happening. Then you can, because it is about current context, which are the science and tech stuff that is in current context. You have AI, then you have your social media. So now climate change. Now AI, how will you link with this? How can you link AI to this? So now there is this fear of AI taking up jobs, right? So this is the trouble, AI taking up jobs. Now we should stay untroubled, which is by what? By upskilling ourselves, right? So those who upskill themselves during this thinking of AI taking up jobs will trouble itself, which is basically they will overcome that fear of AI. So I can now make up any kind of current context example here, but I have to just think in this direction of using AI. Now, how can I use social media here? Fake news is there. So that is the trouble. So those the trouble here is fake news bombardment or fake news coming WhatsApp universities and all those things. So how will I stay untroubled here? How will I stay untroubled here? By having better awareness, right? By having better awareness or by verifying it once more. Will trouble itself, which means that they can easily disprove that fake content. There are basically a lot of fact checkers these days. Where do the fact checkers put out their messages? They put it on social media only. The very space in which the fake news comes, that is the space in which fake news is again being disproved. So you can again connect social media here and write. So have a set of good current context themes and examples ready made so that you can put any quote into that and then get an example and then write it. Because what is the demand of the question? It is to see the meaning of the quote in the present context only, right? Fine. So this is about the code based questions, and this was my structure. Have an intro, have a meaning, have the current context 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then write a conclusion and then get it done with, right? So this is how you do it. That the more diverse your current context examples are, the more marks you will get for these type of code based questions. Sorry, conclusion can be a forward looking, mostly it should be a futuristic one or a forward looking one. So here they're talking about trouble and Thiruvalluvar, so you can link Thiruvalluvar and then write. So you can write hence from this quote, hence Thiruvalluvar's quote is relevant across sectors and talks about how we should be in a steady state of mind irrespective of what will be bombarding us and all those things. So or we can write about India 2047 as well. So India should keep on moving towards this context. This quote also holds relevance to the context of India, where we have to stay focused on our goal of attaining Viksit Bharat 2047 irrespective of the troubles that are troubling us. So like this we can write a forward looking conclusion, nationalistic conclusion, so that it holds everything together. And in the meaning, current context, again you can bring in civil servants. Civil servants angle can be brought in the code based questions also. So here what can be a civil servant angle to that quote? Troubling the trouble, untroubled. What can be a civil servant angle to this? Sorry?
Staying calm
during what?
In adversities.
What adversities?
major crisis in that particular district.
Even more trouble. What trouble? Sorry? Flood. Okay, but you should
Be more
anything.
specific, like political interference.
This is what I was thinking about. Political interference will be the trouble. Political interference will be the trouble. And those who are untroubled during that become troublesome. They become a good civil servant. There was this recent example which was famous in social media. A politician was calling a civil servant on her phone, on another person's phone. I'm not sure if you have seen it. So she takes the phone and then it happens over the phone, political interference. So all these things you can write as an example here. And during that also they stay untroubled. So that can be written as a current context example where even with political pressure, they still stayed untroubled, and that was, they can trouble itself. So this is a civil servant's angle that you can bring to the code-based questions, which many people do not do. And if you do this, you will get good marks, better marks than other persons. So bring in, that is the thinking, bring in a civil servant's angle everywhere, right? Fine, okay. No, it doesn't work because they ask anything. So, but looking at the PYQs, find a common theme that is running through. Basically, determination, all those things are common themes that are running through, right? So, coming up after failure as well. I face failure, but I'm still getting up and then coming back. Peace, world peace is a famous theme as well. So, all these things can be taken.
You'll anyway be preparing some codes, right, for your content preparation. Like when you're preparing integrity, you can use some of those codes for understanding. Say, for example, if I'm practicing, I'll see some of what Kant has said, right? Some of the important things that, let us say, Gandhi has said, and I'll try to break them down in my mind. For example, if this comes as a code-based questions, how will I address this? Just as Socrates has said, an unexamined life is not worth living. I'll try to attempt this as a code-based question for practice. If it comes, so fair, it's a lottery only, right?
So you can do that, yeah.
Then now what we're going to do is we'll open the 2025 ethics paper. For those of you who attempted the paper, this year the scores in ethics in general have dipped. So what we'll do is we'll make him brainstorm some of the questions like the paper itself, so that we can finally gather from his paper attempting strategy what are the things that he did differently in the actual paper that led to this score, right? So we'll open the paper and then discuss few of the questions there.
Yeah. There is this Indian Express, there is a thing, right? You're asking for collecting civil servants examples. That Indian Express, I think some awards they are giving something. So that is a good, I'm not sure of the exact name, but that is a good source. Sorry?
Good governance award.
Good governance awards. So that is a good source. Then the president themselves, the honorable president, they themselves give, the medals and awards to good civil servants. So they can again be used as examples. Try to think of examples in your district, your place, your state. So I used to write a lot of Tamil Nadu based civil servants examples, which many people won't be writing. So try to think of your own state, what they're doing over there, so that it is a bit more personal to you. So that is there. And yeah.
Now, in
So,
the 25
yes,
paper,
ma'am. Yes,
what
ma'am.
we had, Raja, was a lot of civil servant related
Yes,
questions,
ma'am.
one after
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah. So yeah, so basically that is what I was saying. I think we discussed a bit about this before as well. A lot of specific measures was asked, and a lot of civil servants based questions were asked. Let me just show you. So here, I can still scroll through,
No,
right?
no, you won't be able to scroll. Just
Okay.
scroll.
Okay. Yeah. So here, look at this. It is said that for an ethical work culture, there must be code of ethics in place in every organization to ensure value-based and complaints-based work culture. What suitable measures would you adopt in your workplace? So they're asking about what basically code of ethics, right? Code of ethics, how it is needed in your workplace. That is what they're asking about. So here again, they're asking about the suitable measures. Code of ethics is again a part of the syllabus in that I think it's a part of the public and civil service values. It's over there. So in that, if you had brainstormed about the measures that I had told you to do, so you could easily do it. And you can again here talk about civil servants who have done well in doing this. Like for example, there is a civil servant called Sagayam. So how did he bring up code of ethics? So he visibly had a board put out saying here no bribes will be taken, which in turn, when the head of a office is saying that, it in turn propagates a what? A good work culture. Value based work culture is propagated. So you can use his example over here. So that is what I was saying. Have a set of good 30 examples ready with the case study as well. Like just don't have the name of the civil servant written and kept. Write also the thing that they did so that it becomes easy to add. Now look at this question. India's emerging economic power of the world as it has recently secured. See, this looks like a huge question, but it is actually very simple. Status of fourth largest economy of the world as per IMF. However, it has been observed that in some sectors, allocated funds underutilized or misutilized. Specific measures you recommend for ensuring accountability in this record to stop leakages and gaining the status of third largest economy, which is basically which part of the syllabus? Misutilization of funds and underutilization of funds. It's directly given in the syllabus. Probity and governance, which is the last part of the syllabus. So there they talk about misutilization of funds. And here again, what is the explicit demand that they're asking? Specific measures that you are recommending. That is all. So here again, you can use the civil servants examples over here. Now look at these questions. Okay. Yeah, it's 3A only, code-based questions. Yeah. So, wait, they would have asked explicitly. One who is devoted to one's duty attains highest perfection in life. Analyze this statement with reference to sense of responsibility and personal fulfillment as a civil servant. So what is the demand of this? So demand of this question is like one's duty, when they're devoted to duty, that itself is enough to attain fulfillment in the personal life as well. So basically this is nothing but the duty principle of Kant that they're giving. Basically you do your duty. That is enough to get personal fulfillment. So here you can use civil servants examples where a lot of gratitude has been shown. So there was this one civil servant in Tamil Nadu. He constructed a colony for transgenders, and then what they did, they named the colony after him. So which is a sign of gratitude that they show towards the civil servant. So that was an actual example that happened, and that is a kind of personal fulfillment for him, right? So these kind of examples again should be used in this question. And then this question as well. Yeah, this one. For any kind of social re-engineering by successfully implementing welfare schemes, a civil servant must use reason and critical thinking in an ethical framework. Justify the statement with suitable examples. Again, this is talking in the context of a civil servant only. Again, here you will be using civil servants. So there was one more question talking about form over substance. I'm just looking for that question. One second. That again is a civil servant question, by the way, the constitutional morality one. This one. To achieve holistic development goal, a civil servant acts as an enabler and active facilitator of growth rather than a regulator. So what does this talk about? This talks about this question they ask almost every year. This talks about form versus substance, which is basically you should not be a just a rule follower. Just to the line, you should not be following the rules, but the ultimate aim should be to see that the goal is achieved. So this is basically rule-based governance versus role-based governance. So there are a lot of keywords to this: rule-based governance versus role-based governance. Outcome-based governance. So outcome-based governance is more important than following just the rules. If you just follow the rules, it forms a iron cage. You know who said this? Iron cage of rationality. Who said this? Weber's iron cage of rationality. So that is something that is there, which basically happens when you just stick to the rules. So this actually happened somewhere where there were 2-3 people who were actually deserving of the PDS system, but then they didn't have the Aadhaar card, so they were denied the PDS. So then they died of starvation. This was an actual example that happened. So that can be written here. So civil servant should not be just someone who just sticks to the rules objectively. He should also have thoda sa emotional intelligence, where he can understand that okay, in this situation something extra can be done to that person because he's actually deserving of it. So this is that type of a question. And again, what have they asked? What specific measures will you suggest to achieve this goal? So they again asked the measures part. And since I had a good set of civil servants, I could use different examples in different questions. For example, this one, this question 1B again talks about constitutional morality, public servant. So you can use 5 different examples here. Then here again, civil servant, you can use different examples. So here you can particularly use examples where they helped in removing the untouchability and all the social evils that are there. So here again, I had an example of Tamil Nadu mein, where they did a very bad thing. So what happened was one caste people, what they did to propagate untouchability or something, what they did was they mixed the cow dung and feces into the water tank of another caste people. So this happened, and there is this thing called 2 tumbler system, which was still prevalent. And all these things were particularly taken up into attention by a civil servant of Tamil Nadu, and then it got a lot of attention. So I use that example here, which is basically what social re-engineering. And again, there is another civil servant in Maharashtra. What she is doing is basically having Balika Panchayats, which is basically have a model Panchayat where young children, young girls are acting as the Panchayat members and all, and they do it. So from a very young age, women are brought into leadership positions and all those things. So that again is a type of social re-engineering. So these kind of unique examples are used in this question, right? So again, this, as I told, achieve holistic development goal, a civil servant acting as an enabler. Again, a civil servant based question. So from this paper, again, this one, misutilization of funds, what specific measures will be taking. So from this paper, you can see that they are mostly focusing on the last 2 parts of the syllabus, which is basically public civil service values and then probity in governance. So for these 2, have a good set of civil servants examples, like I told before, and also the specific measures ready-made beforehand, right? And I think this usage of unique examples is what pushed me past 130, is what I feel. Yeah, so this is about 25 paper. And here in this paper, another thing to note was that they didn't ask direct theory questions at all. They didn't ask what is attitude, what is aptitude, what is emotional intelligence. And I think they are moving away from it, but that doesn't mean that you can ignore them as well. You should be doing them as well. So yeah, that's it. And these all we have discussed, right? All the code-based questions and how to brainstorm. So I wrote different perspectives in this question. War is a diplomacy by other means, the mythological perspective and all those things. So that is what helped me to, diversify my points as well. Yeah.
We can move to the case studies now. I think in case studies also you had some insights into how we can differentiate and how we can bring everything that we're reading in the theory aspect to make better our case. So I want to pick up that Manrega case study that troubled many aspirants this year.
Yeah. So for people who don't know about it, what happened was, this person is basically working as
What was the number of the case?
this one, ma'am. 11th. Yeah. See, you have been appointed as an administrator in charge of the district for MG Narega, right? But then what happened was, in one of the panchayats, you notice that your predecessor is who? The one who was there before. So what he has done, he has what? Mismanaged the program, right? Money not dispersed, muster rolls of labors not properly maintained, mismatch between work done and payments made to fictitious persons. All bad things has been happened because of his mismanagement, right? So now generally what I do in case studies to differentiate my answer from others, because it is generally very difficult to differentiate case studies, and we'll be looking in the further as well on which mode to focus on, section A or case studies. We'll be looking at that as well. Case studies, it is difficult to differentiate the answer that I am writing. If ma'am is writing an answer, it mostly will be the similar one, because there is just one good way to go about anything, right? You cannot have a variety of different ways, and we don't have time over there to think of a different or a unique angle to write as well. So what happens, what we can do to make it unique then? So I brought in again the syllabus point that I talked about, your personal views. So I brought in my personal, I put myself in the shoe. So you have been appointed. So if you are appointed there, and look at the question that they're asking, what is your reaction to the above situation? And what will you write here? What is your reaction here? What will you be writing? You are there, you're appointed, and you see that your predecessor has mismanaged. So what will be your reaction once you see this? Stressed. Okay. More? Anything else? You actually think of yourself there. You're there, and then something like this has happened. So what will you feel? Apart from stressed, you will obviously feel angry that this person has done all these things, right? And now it is upon you to correct it. And you will obviously, if you're a bit more empathetic person, you will feel sorry for the who? Sorry for the people in that panchayat, because they are facing all these problems. So this question they explicitly asked this time, but I used to write it for all the case studies irrespective of them asking. Let's say generally what they ask you to write the course of action, how you will be taking care of this case study, right? But then what I used to do is, before writing the course of action, I used to give my state of mind over there. I'm feeling extremely stressed because of this. I feel angered, I feel emotional, I feel sad towards the people. But then I also write a point saying, but my emotional intelligence also kicks in, and I will take these decisions not in a rash mentality, but after going through everything in an objective way, right? So I used to write this. So here essentially what are you showing? You're showing your section A ka learnings in case study. In section A, we study about emotional intelligence and why emotional intelligence is very important for every person, and that too for civil servants. So in almost all the case studies, everyone will be emotionally disturbed. Either it is a conflict of interest, your mother is lying sick and you have to be there at the workplace. All these are what? Emotionally stressful things. Emotional intelligence is needed to take a proper objective step over there. So I will bring in the emotional intelligence angle to all the questions or the case studies that I write. I say that I'm angry, I am stressed, I feel this, I feel that, because I am actually there in the case study. According to me, I give a story to the the examiner to read. So I write that, but I also talk about emotional intelligence and how objectivity is needed while taking decisions, right? But in this question, they themselves asked it. What is your reaction to the above situation? And many people found these three questions difficult because just read them. What is your reaction to the above situation, and how do you restore the proper functioning, right? What actions would you initiate to solve the various issues? How would you deal with the above situation? Now look at these three questions. All three are what? Almost look same, right? So many were thinking, what will I write here, right? How should I differentiate it? But since I had this practice of writing that personal angle and the personal aspect to all my case studies, so to the first part of what is your reaction, I wrote the emotional angle. My reaction is like this, stressed, all these things. How do you restore the proper functioning? So here I wrote about the values that I will bring in, the various things that I will be bringing in, like for example, objectivity and all those things I wrote here. And that was something that I had practiced before for other case studies as well. So in other case studies, they never ask this: what values will you be bringing in, or how exactly you will be doing it, what basically the section A points. But still I wrote it here. I will make sure that my values, the values of honesty, integrity, empathy, all this I follow, so that I that the Nolan principles basically. So I use all these things to make sure that it is done. Then for this, what actions would you initiate for the various issues listed above? You have to go about addressing each issue. So that is the major part of the question. How would you deal with the above situation? So here you should talk about an overall approach to the entire thing, not just talk about the specific actions, but an overall approach, right? So for case studies particularly, now what I would advise to you guys is to be very specific to what they're asking. For example, everyone had this habit of writing stakeholders for case studies. So whenever they ask a case study, they write stakeholders, they draw a box, and then they write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that is not at all needed, because in this question, they are not asking you to write stakeholders. Similarly, in any case study, if you take, they will never ask you to write who are the stakeholders here. So why are we writing the stakeholders? Again, it is about the herd mentality. Everyone is writing it, so we are doing. So we should move away from that and write to the question. And when they're asking what are the options before you, right here, what are the options available to Ashok to cope with the situation? So here, what generally people do, they write the options and they evaluate it by writing pros and cons of each option. But that is again wrong. Here you should just be writing about the options that are available, right? You should not be writing the pros and cons, because he has not asked you to evaluate it. But let's say he is asking you to evaluate it. So look at this one. Which of the options do you think would be more appropriate for Ashok to adopt, and why? So here he is asking you to see which one is the best option. So you can take the best option and then write it here and say that this has this pro, and then it has only just this much of con. So this is the best option, and then I'll be choosing it. So when they're asking you to evaluate the options, then write the pros and cons. If they're not asking you to evaluate, they're just asking the options before you, just write the options that are before you. All right. And if they're asking ethical issues in a 3-part question, like for example, there are 3 parts for some questions. So this is a 3-part question, right? A, B, and C. So here, one part is what are the ethical issues involved. Here again, what are the options available with Rajesh? So here again, you should not be going into the pros and cons. You just need to write the options, but you should give more options. Here, what are the ethical issues involved? So here I'll try to write at least 10 ethical issues here. Why I'm going with 10? Because of the logical reason that it is a 20-mark case study with 3 questions, which means each question has almost 7. So if it is a 4-part question and 1 is ethical issues, then obviously I'll be writing 6 or 7 only. I won't be going as far as 10. So this kind of small things should be kept in mind. Then apart from this, while choosing which of the appropriate option and why, this part they keep asking why this is the most appropriate option. And then the last question as well, they asked about which of the options is more appropriate and why. So in this why part, again, you should bring in your section A here. So you should talk about how from a utilitarian perspective, this is a good point. How from a deontological perspective, this is a good option. How it goes with the if you are taking a middle path, then you can talk about how it goes with Aristotle's golden mean, or the Buddha's middle path and stuff like that. So you should use thinkers again here to justify it, and you should also use values as well. It goes with the values of humanity, it goes with the value of honesty, integrity. Again, values should be used here. And again, let's say it is going with the constitutional morality as well, and with the rules of conduct that you are having, you should again write it here. It goes with the rules of conduct and the constitutional morality that is there. So all these things you should be using to reason out why this is the best option. Generally people write very generic stuff here. They write this is the best option because this happened. They write just generic stuff. So here again you should bring in the ethical angle to it. So these are the basic things of case studies. Be very personal to it. Write your own perspectives, how you're feeling, all those things. Write to the demand of the question. When they're asking options, just write the options. Ethical issues, just write the issues, all those things. And for evaluating the options and for writing why this is the best option, use your ethical thinkers and your section A part, right? So this is with regards to case studies, and now we'll be coming to how to attempt the paper. So for attempting the paper, and we also have introductions, right? So for case study, for many people don't write an introduction to the case study, but still you can write it. So you can link in any current issue that is happening. Mostly the case studies are based on current issues. So there is this one case study here in this paper where they talk about, like how a person, the son of this guy knows that a highway is going to come up. So he wants his father to let him buy that land, so that when the highway comes up, the land price will shoot up, right? So this is a case study that was given in this year, and it actually happened in recently. It actually happened where in Madhya Pradesh, where a few officers, they came together, they bought a piece of land. Now it is worth crores of rupees because some construction is happening. So what they predicted actually happened in real life. So when they ask this case study, maybe in the future, you can write this example as a context in your introduction. So bringing in a present context, linking it and then writing, or by bringing in, or by telling if it is a conflict of interest or ethical dilemma in the very beginning itself. If it is a sexual harassment case study, I generally talk about Vishaka guidelines in the in the introduction itself. So you can link polity, current affairs to the introduction and then write it. So that gives a good hook to the examiner in the introduction of the case study. So that you can do. You can use it in your introductions for case studies, right? So now how to attempt the paper. So justifying the options I've told you, right? How to justify. So paper attempting strategy, how much hours do we have? 3 hours, 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours. First 1.5 hours should be for section A. This is my opinion. So so you have 1.5 hours. So this will be for your section A, right? And this is for case studies, section B. And always attempt it in order. Section A, complete all the questions, then move on to your case studies and then complete it. So if it is, there are 6 case studies, 1.5 hours per question, 15 minutes per question, right? So 15 minutes per case study and then do it. So that is how you have to structure it out. If for me, this 1.5 hours often stretch to 1 hour 40 minutes, but it's still fine. Like, do not compromise on section A. This is my learning or my advice to you guys. Don't compromise on section A. It is fine if you compromise on case studies as well, because as I told, everyone writes the same stuff in case studies. It is difficult to differentiate. So everyone gets 10 marks, 10, 8, 9, those marks. So, but in section A, you can show your differentiation, your learnings and everything. So again, this is my advice because my seniors told me this. They told me that even if you leave a part of a case study, still people get 120 plus. In fact, I couldn't write well the last part of the last case study. So, but still I got 138. So you can take that also as a learning and focus more on the section A part rather than the case study part. More in the sense that write this first, because your last 1.5 hours anyways will be a bit compromised. And the last question that you're writing will be compromised. But that should be a case study is what I'm saying, and not a section A question. And generally for GS, I will tell that as well. I attempted the first 5 10 markers, then the 10 15 markers, then the last 1 to 5 10 markers, then all the 10 15 markers, then 6 to 10 markers at the last. So this was a general idea of GS 1 2 3, and this is for ethics. Ethics is from question 1 to last question. So that is how I did. So I would also advise you to do this, do the same for ethics particularly. And the logic of this, do you guys know why we write the first 5 10 markers and then skip to all the 15 markers? Why do we do it? Yeah.
If you would leave the last question, it would cost only 10 marks from 15.
Yeah, that is there. And the first 5 10 markers we write for the first impression, so that the first few questions that they read is very good. So 1 to 5 is for 10 markers. Then these we write all the 15 10 marker, all the 10 15 markers for the marks. Basically, we have to get marks here. We cannot afford to leave a 15 marker. Then we go on to complete the 6 to 10 markers. Even if you leave a question, it will be a 10 marker. That is why. This is for 1, 2, 3. People do this in this. That is what I'm saying. People do this in ethics, where they write a few section A questions, then they complete case studies, then they write section A questions again, which will severely compromise your section A. So don't do that, is what I feel. Okay, fine. So this is about paper attempting strategy. I think
this brings us to the end of it. I think there's some things that you should pick up from today's session. One is that see how much focus really put on addressing the demand of the question as it is asked. हम क्या करते हैं, हम जो notes हमने prepare किए, we try to replicate them as it is. जो हमें पता है, we try to tell the examiner about that. Right? Even though you do not know the core demand of the question, the explicit demand of the question, you have to try to address it as if you know it completely from the content that you have prepared. तो आपको सारी जो भी चीजें आप बता रहे हो एग्जाम में, you have to align it with what you are writing. Right? जैसे he said that when he was writing options, what are the options available पूछा है, तो you will not go one step forward and explain the options, the pros and cons that every option has. In that case, you'll just mention the options that are available with you. Option 1 is this, option 2 is this, option 3 is this, 4 and 5. But when you are asked to analyze the options, only then will you open the options, pros and cons. Similarly, the implicit and explicit demands. What do you understand by implicit demand? उसको कितना attention देना है, उसको कितना space देना है किसी question में, that you will be able to address only when you understand this कि marks किस चीज पे ज़्यादा allotted है. So he is writing 10 ethical issues, ethical dilemmas, because there are more marks to that specific question. Stakeholders skip कर सकते हो because there are no marks for that. Introductions लिखो जहाँ पे 3 subparts हो question के. Skip the introductions. You know, when there are so many demands, questions or subparts asked to a question. So you have to write whatever marks are being accorded to specifically. Right? That is what you can pick up. Anything last words that you want to add, Raja?
Yeah, ma'am, I think that's we have done everything in detail. So focus a lot on the answer writing part. So if you're giving this year's mains, I think mostly you won't have that much of time for answer writing. So try to write FLTs and brainstorm PYQs. But let's say you're preparing for next year's mains or something like that, then try to write all the PYQs that are there. So, or at least brainstorm all the PYQs are there. At least once you should have looked at all the PYQs. That I did only for GS4 because I didn't have time. So just for GS4, I looked at all the PYQs that is there, and that helped me a lot. And that helps in brainstorming also. So I try to write half of the PYQs and half of the PYQs try to brainstorm. The more you write, the better it is. But let's say you have paucity of time, then do brainstorming at least. So this would be the takeaway from this. But the major takeaway is answer writing. Answer writing is the key to get a rank. And again, each and every mark matters here. I know of people who are out of the list as well because of marks, who are getting a lower service because of marks. Just 1 mark they are missing out on IAS. Then some are missing out on the cadre and everything. So each and every mark matters. So that is what is about mains. So write answers, practice answers. So that will be the final takeaway. Yeah. My Telegram channel is there. You can see that. Yeah. Anything else? Fine, right? Yeah.
Okay. I think we can end the session here. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Raja.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.